Hello students, good afternoon. Once again, we are meeting after a 1 day break. Children, day before yesterday, we have learnt about how megasporangium looks like, the formation of the female gametophyte, that is megasporogenesis, and of course, the differences between male gametophyte and female gametophyte. Today's topic is about pollination, right? Now we know that pollination is a process of transferring of pollen grains, from the stamen to the pistil of the flower, isn't it? So how does this pollen grains are transferred from the pollen from the anther to the stigma of the flower? Okay. Now, depending upon the kind of pollination, isn't it? Depending upon the kind of pollination, there are three types of pollination. Okay. So let us see the first one. The first one is called autogamy, right? Auto means self. What is autogamy? Autogamy is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Okay. Example like in pea plants, right? So this pea plant is an example of self pollination. Then rice and also wheat. Okay, these are some of the plants, and also some of the plants like for example in plants like Cleistogamous flowers. Cleistogamous flowers are those flowers where they do not open their flowers, isn't it? So they don't expose their stamens and pistil, so therefore they have to be self-pollinated. So this type of pollination is known as autogamy. Autogamy means self-pollination, right? Then the second one that comes to is what is called as a geitonogamy. Okay, geitonogamy is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the another flower or the same plant. So when there is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant, okay, this is termed as geitonogamy. Now usually geitonogamy is a type of what you call cross pollination. It is functionally a cross pollination, but genetically it is similar to autogamy. Okay, there's no much difference between the autogamy and geitonogamy. Okay, in autogamy the pollen grains of one flower fall on the stigma of the same flower. In geitonogamy, the pollen grains of one flower they fall on the stigma of another flower. Okay, it may be on the other branch. Okay, it may be some other branch. So therefore, that is called as a geitonogamy. So it is functionally a cross pollination, but genetically it is a what you call similar to autogamy. Now the third one is called the xenogamy. Xenogamy is a very important and a different type of pollination, right? Because it is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of another flower of the different plant. What is it? So when the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of different plant, okay, as you can see here in 2.9 figure 2.9b, okay, so we have got the plant like for example we have this flower called as a sunflower. So sunflower is an example of what type of plant? It is an example of a cross-pollinated flower. Okay. And what about the A figure? That is, we can see the pea plant where it is completely self-pollinated flower. It is self-pollinated flower. Okay. Now in plants, right? In some plants, okay, let us see some other aspects of this. Okay, now what are the other agents of pollination? Okay, some other aspects of pollination. There are agents. No, how these actually the pollen grains are brought about from one flower to other flower. Okay, so there are some agents of pollination. We call them. We just divide them into two parts. One is called as abiotic agents. Other one is called as a biotic agents. Abiotic in the sense like water, like wind. Okay, these are the agents that can be what you call brought about by wind and water. Wind is actually a very common type of agent in the case of grasses and cereals, like for example rice or wheat or corn, isn't it? Maize. And in some aquatic plants, okay, the water is actually like a hydrilla, ceratophyllum. Okay, in these plants, water will be the main agent. And what about the biotic? Biotic agents are a very large number of biotic agents. They may be birds, they may be insects, They may be bats, they may be reptiles, and they even be mammals. Okay, all these are the various biotic agents. Okay, and these actually if I look at the biotic agents, of all the biotic agents, the insects are most important pollinator of a plant, what you call pollinator, whereby these plants can be easily get pollinated by insects. Okay, so that the different terms are there for what you call maybe regarding them, to call them as the way the pollination occurs. Okay, if the pollination by wind, it's called anemophily. Okay, if it is by water, it is called hydrophily, and it is by agents, biotic agents, especially the insects, we call entomophily. Okay, birds, it's called as ornithophily, and bats it's called as a chiropterophily. So there are different terms which are used for the pollination. Okay, let us come some very important aspects of what we call flowers, or adaptations of flowers which are pollinated by wind. Okay, now if the flowers are pollinated by wind, okay, there are certain very interesting aspects of these flowers. Now you can see this diagram 2.10. Okay, and here in this plant you can see how well the stamens are exposed. Okay, look at the flowers. The flowers usually are not very colorful. Okay, and they do not produce any nectar, right? And the pollen grains are very light and non-sticky, so that they can be easily dispersed by the wind currents. Okay, and the flowers, look at the stamens. The flowers have stamens very well exposed, so that the pollens can be easily dispersed by wind currents, by air to different distant places. Okay, and what about the stigma? The stigma is feathery, and this is because to trap the pollen grains which are present in the air. Okay, and what about the ovule? Okay, usually the ovary consists of a single ovule. Okay, and here the flowers are very numerous. They will be usually packed into very small inflorescence, like for example in the case of a corn cob. So let us, these are the some adaptations of plants which are pollinated by wind. Okay, now pollination by wind is called as a anemophily. Okay, now what about the plants which are pollinated by water? Pollination by water is called hydrophily, isn't it? And usually water pollination is limited to about 30 genera. Okay, 30 genera. Okay, mostly monocots. Example like Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Actually, okay, so these are completely plants which are growing in water. Okay, now in Vallisneria, what happens? In Vallisneria, the female flower reaches the surface of water by the long stalk, and the male flowers or pollen grains are released onto the surface of water. Now look at that. The female flower reaches to the surface of water by means of a long stalk, right? And then they are carried by the passively by water currents. Okay. In sea grasses, okay, female flowers remain submerged in water, and the pollen, which are long ribbon like, carried by water to the stigma of the female flowers. Okay, pollen grains are protected from wetting by a mucilage covering. So since they're in water, the pollen grains have to be properly protected. So there is a mucilaginous covering. Okay, just like you have seen like a lotus flower, lotus leaf. Okay, what happens when you sprinkle water on the lotus leaf? You can see the water rolls on the leaf by means of small pearls, like, isn't it? So in that way, the leaf is covered with a mucilage. Similarly, the pollen grains are also protected by means of their what we call mucilage covering. Okay, here also the flowers are not very colorful. There are some exceptions, like for example lotus and all. Okay, but lotus and usually the water hyacinth, which we are discussed in chapter 1, which is commonly called as a terror of Bengal, they don't get pollinated by water, isn't it? So since the flowers are exposed to the surface of water, they usually pollinated by insects. Okay, so that is some of the exceptions that we see in the case of what we call water plants. Okay, so water plants, pollination by water is known as a hydrophily. Okay, now coming to the pollination by insects. Okay, and here we know that the pollination by insects is known as entomophily, and usually the flowers are very large, colorful, fragrant, and rich in nectar. Okay, now how do they attract the insects? Now, when they attract the insects, they must be very colorful, and so what happens, they produce certain rewards, floral rewards. So what are the floral rewards? The rewards will be in the form of nectar. right? And also in the form of edible pollen grains. Okay, in some species like Amorphophallus, okay, and this is the tallest flower we have because the size of this flower, the size of the flower is about 6 feet in height. Okay, and it provides a safe place to lay what you call eggs to some insects. Okay, and also in some plants like for example yucca, okay, a plant name by name yucca. Okay, this is the very interesting phenomenon with these plant. Okay, this yucca, it cannot yucca and a species of moth. No, they cannot complete their life cycles without each other. Okay, so there's a kind of interrelationship between these two species whereby it actually the moth deposits its eggs in the locales of the ovary and also pollinates the flower. The larva comes out as a seeds are developing. Okay, children. So that is a very very interesting aspect of what you call this part. Okay, children. So today almost all we have covered about the pollination, different types of pollination. Okay, biotic and abiotic agents, adaptations in flower for pollination. This is a very very important concept because usually a 3 marks question is asked between the adaptations of the wind pollination as well as the insect pollination. Okay, children. So thank you very much and stay home, stay safe, and also stay healthy.